When I was younger, I used to love playing multiplayer games, especially games like Call of Duty. And I would spend all night long playing with friends and talking about different stories. But as I got older, it became harder to hang out with friends since everyone had their own schedules. So to compensate for that, I decided to start playing single player games. I had never really gotten that much into single player games. I used to love just playing mostly multiplayer games. But when I started transitioning into single player games, something changed within me. And this is really why I really love playing mostly single player games, and even today. When I started playing single player games like, for example, The Last of Us, Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed, something changed. I became those characters. I got immersed into that story. The music, the arts, the graphics, the story itself, the journey that those characters went along with, it created an emotional atmosphere for me to connect with that I never got with multiplayer games. I used to be addicted to playing Call of Duty, and I used to love playing other games like PUBG as well. But as soon as I started playing single player games, it became a definitive experience. Getting to experience the world through those characters and learning about the lore of the worlds that I was exploring, it was just fascinating to me. And it felt more like I was not watching a movie, but I was playing a character in the movie. Like I was a part of that journey myself, which is something I've never experienced before up to this point. And I love single player games so much. I love them to this day, and that's why I mostly play single player games on my channel, is because I just love exploring everything. It doesn't matter if it's a Telltale game or a JRPG or an RPG, as long as there's a story within that game, it makes it worthwhile. And sure, don't get me wrong, multiplayer games are still fun, especially if you have friends to hang out with. That's how I really enjoy multiplayer games. But being an older adult now, it's very hard to meet up with friends online and have schedules aligned at the same as you. It's not always easy to find people to play at the same time as you because everyone has things going on in their lives. Playing single player games, I've gotten to experience so much love and passion. Now, I understand game development is crazy and it takes years to craft up these stories and make these games, but single player games have been worth it a lot. One of my favorite series of all time is Assassin's Creed. Now, as you guys have seen on this channel, I've played all the games, and I'm currently playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, but I really love the way the story and characters develop throughout that whole series. And there's different characters in that game that I've bonded to, like Ezio, Connor, Edward, Bayek, so many characters that I've loved so much. And I just love the idea of being an assassin, fighting the Templars, fighting a secret society to save the world, to make sure that freedom is protected. I don't know, something about that just always resonated with me, and that's one of the game series I love. I used to love multiplayer games, and I know especially younger audiences love multiplayer games because who doesn't like playing with friends or competing with other people or fighting in PvP matches against other players. And while that love for multiplayer games is still there for me, it's not as big as it used to be. It has shrunk down a lot, and it's become kind of like a side note for me now. Since I mostly play single player games, I just love the experience about it. For example, The Last of Us, I really resonated a lot with The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 as well. I really connected with Joel and Ellie, as well as Ellie and Abby in Part 2. The way the complexities of these characters is shown to us is just amazing. And I don't know, I don't really get that sort of emotional attachment in multiplayer games. Like multiplayer games for me, don't get me wrong, they're fun, they're a great time, but you quickly forget about those experiences. Like unless you had memorable moments with your friends, it's not really as impactful as, let's say, you play the whole God of War story. That is very impactful for me. Learning all the attributes of a character, their flaws, the way they fall and pick each other up, and the way the world is built around is just amazing. I really enjoy the way everything is set up in single player games. And it's kind of cool seeing how each character progresses And sometimes, especially like in RPG games, you get to make choices that really affect the story of the game, which is one of the reasons I really like playing RPG games as well. But I love single player games so much. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate multiplayer games. I don't think they're the worst thing on the planet or that I won't play them. I love playing multiplayer games, but it has to be with people for the most part. Something about single player games is just the world you always fall in love with. That is the big key, is the world and the characters. And there's no build up like that on games like Call of Duty, unless you're playing like the campaign, but even then the campaign's like super short. But that's the great thing about single player games, is that there's different lengths of games for everyone. It could be a short, quick 8-hour game, or it could be a medium-sized game to like 20 hours to longer games that are 50 hours plus. And I really love Black Myth Wukong, which I recently beat a while back on the channel. That was one of my personal favorite games. Not only did it have the immersion or combat kind of like Elden Ring and God of War, but it also had a great story that explained what happened to Sun Wukong and his successor that takes up the title. There's just so much aspects that if you only play multiplayer games, you will miss out so much on groundbreaking storytelling that is told throughout single player games. And vice versa, like if you only play single player games and don't play multiplayer games, there's so much you also miss with interacting with people as well. But I think single player games are the best thing that's probably ever happened to me in my life. I just love seeing every complex situation, the funny situations I find myself in. Of course, always there's glitches and stuff that you run into in games, doesn't matter which side it is, but there's no lag, there's nobody trying to cheat, there's no cheaters you have to deal with on a single player story game, because it's just you against the world. The environments, the storytelling, all the richness that comes with single player games is out of this world. For example, I really want to play Mass Effect. I don't know if it's gonna be this year or maybe the next, but I already have like several single player games that I want to play this year. For example, I want to play Death Stranding. I've played it before and I fell in love with Hideo Kojima's crazy, weird world, but somehow it appealed to me. I know single player games may not be for everyone, but I would suggest people give them a try, because you never know. There's always a game out there for everyone to enjoy, especially story games for me. And I hope one day we get story games evolve so much that it becomes literally like you're in that world. For example, one of my favorite movies of all time was a Ready Player One, and even though that's a VR game and I'm not much of a VR player, the fact that games mean that much to people and just in general in pop culture is just amazing, that people can connect to so many different characters, whether it's a game like Halo or, you know, Call of Duty, Fortnite. There's just so much emphasis on how gaming has impacted the world. But I feel single player games overall in general are way better than anything else, and I encourage more people to experience them. One of the biggest games that I ever fell in love with besides Assassin's Creed was Mass Effect, and I also love The Last of Us. Again, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring. I really loved Elden Ring, and I was afraid of Elden Ring. I'm not a Souls player, and I had a great time with it, so I'm hoping to play Sekiro as well and dive into that world and explore more of what's going to happen. But I think everyone should give single player games a chance. I do want to play more shorter single player games because I love short games as well. I've always wanted to play the newest Tomb Raider games, which I haven't had a chance. I just want to cover a little bit more of shorter single player games, although I play mostly like long single player games on the channel because I'm really enhanced and really immersed in those worlds. Like for me, 100-hour game is perfect, but I know not everyone's built like me. That's why I'm glad single player games can vary from being really short and sweet to really long and meticulous. And I kind of like jumping around in those boundaries where I could play a short game like Uncharted, and I could play a long game like Red Dead Redemption or The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom. There's all sorts of variables that come into playing single player games. But I feel as you get older, and maybe it's just my personal experiences, but I feel as I got older, I started leaving things behind, especially multiplayer games. It's very hard to play multiplayer games with people you've never met. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just it's much harder, especially when you get older compared to when you were younger and more open to experiencing and talking to other new players. We'll be playing more single player games throughout this channel. Of course, we'll have our occasional multiplayer games and of course co-op games with friends as well, but there's nothing like it. I don't know what it is, but when I explore those worlds, it's like something in my mind opens up and it absorbs all of the information that's coming at me. Now, am I a person that 100% everything? No. But am I a person who enjoys a game to its fullest? Yes. You never know what you're gonna find or what hidden gems you're gonna play, but we've played many on this channel and I'm proud of it. And we've been in so many games, some which were really hard, others were really easy, and some were in the middle. But I hope to continue more single player games on my gaming journey and expand more into different types of genres as well. That's the one thing I like about single player games, is that it's not just one genre either. There's horror, if you like horror games. There's action adventures, which I really enjoy. There's all sorts of games that are single player. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, you know, feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing. It does help support the channel. I appreciate you guys for listening to me. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm out of here. Peace out. Love you guys. I'm out. Peace.